let's talk about who could be playing their final games as a Detroit Red Wing.
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Red Wings. I am your host, Scott Bentley. Brian still enjoying his wonderful honeymoon. Today is Thursday, April 10th, 2025. Appreciate you all so much for tuning in, as always, making us your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day, and we will, of course, be back tomorrow recapping a hockey game, which I know we are all just so beyond excited to talk about another game of Red Wings hockey. Today, the Wings, I almost said the Tigers. I'm going to probably do that a few more times. Today, the Wings had an off day yesterday as you are listening to this. They play the Panthers probably today as you are listening to this on Friday in Florida. So today I want to play a little bit of a game. Okay, I want to play a game where I am not kidding. We are just going to go through the roster and we are going to talk about whether each player is playing their final 5 games for the Detroit Red Wings. And the reason why, I mean, we'll certainly have plenty of conversations over the summer and in the offseason, Brian and I, and talk about the future of all these players, what to do with, certain guys, the, RFAs, UFAs, who it might be traded, whatever. We'll have plenty of in-depth kind of big picture conversations involving that. But I think it's a really good exercise. It's something I do over at Locked On Tigers as well, to have a conversation like this while the season is still going on as well, because it kind of prepares people for A, the end of the season, and B, kind of what holes this team is still very much trying to fill going ahead. So I think it's important to do this with a few games left as well. There's some really easy ones on here as well. I'm not trying to make it sound like this is, this whole roster is just in limbo and it's going to be a huge question mark who we see on the ice next year. There's plenty that is fairly obvious and that are layups. We will start with the captain, Dylan Larkin. He'll be back. This is going to shock you. Dylan Larkin, not expecting him to go anywhere. He'll be back in the winged wheel next year. Lucas Raymond, same thing. He will absolutely be back. Okay. First two, very, very easy. Don't think there's too much debate. I know after the game last night, everybody is kind of, I don't know, is emotional the right word? I certainly was emotional in a lot of different ways, and saw some takes online about Dylan Larkin and whatnot. I hate to break it to you, love to break it to you, whatever. Both of those guys are going to be back in the winged wheel this fall. Alex DeBrincat, I cannot fathom him going anywhere either. The next one is the first conversation that's maybe not like the most obvious slam dunk ever, but I think it's still probably a yes. That's going to be Andrew Kopp. Kopp goes down with an injury, was playing fine middle six center minutes at one point, especially right before getting hurt. But he's not producing points. This is a guy that is helping you in the faceoff circle, not necessarily the most consistent basis, but like helping you in the faceoff circle, playing really good defense as a forward and middling a line, presumably with some decent scores on either side. Lalonde tried to do the shutdown line, which I go back and listen to me complain about that at the time. I never understood just having a line completely. You were shutting down your own offense too with the shutdown line. Anyway, but I think that he showed some ability to at least be the middleman in a line that wasn't completely just incapable of scoring and producing points. Not via him, but like he wasn't getting in the way either. The craziest part about this free-for-all, and I saw somebody in the comment section yesterday mention it, and I completely agree. It is wild to me that Andrew Kopp gets hurt and the center position implodes on it. for the Red Wings this year. Like, Andrew Copp was not producing offense, dude. Like, it's just wild to me, for as much crap as he has gotten thrown his way from media and fans alike, and for as much as people were frustrated with him for not living up to, that's probably far too dramatic of terminology, but, producing at the clip that, we thought he was going to based on how much he was paid. It is wild to me that he gets hurt, and next thing you know, the Wings have no clue what they're doing up the middle. It's a problem, is what it is. Andrew Copp should not be holding together the center position, really, period, nonetheless, like, by himself. And that also has to do with the next person we're going to talk about, JT Compher, who struggled this year offensively. When it comes to both of them, I expect both of them to be back. I think there's maybe, if you were to like parlay them together and you say like, hey, what are the odds that one of these two is not on the team? Maybe that's a little bit higher than each in a vacuum, just because if there is a world in which, the front office and Yzerman kind of look around and go, this team needs A, just any change up the middle, but B, needs to free up some salary cap, then maybe they look towards one of those two guys. I mean, the cap, the salary for both of them, Copp 5.6, Compher 5.1 next year. Like, certainly, if you could find a way to maybe get one of those off the books for some value, I don't think it's completely out of the question, is my point. But I'm also going through the summer kind of expecting both of them to still be here on opening night 2025. Let's talk Vlad Tarasenko. Vlad Tarasenko is under contract next year for $4.75 million. This is one where it almost feels too easy. I can remember around this time last year when we were talking about, well, there's no way that Justin Hall makes it through the summer. And because it's just such a layup, like, obviously he barely played this year and he's getting paid a lot of money. Obviously you got to find a way to either buy him out or offload the money, whatever. It pains me to be like, well, this is the same situation because he's been that bad. But like, he has struggled mightily, man. Like, this did not work, I guess, is my point. And it's unfortunate because Brian and I were both really excited about Vlad when he was signed, but this clearly did not work. And I'm not really sure what having him on the roster next year accomplishes, I guess, is my point. I really don't. I really don't know. What is he just going to turn it around? He's another year older and another year under the same coaching staff with a lot of the same players around, and he's just magically going to find it next year. He had a whole season, dude. He was healthy this year. He had literally a whole season to figure it out and didn't. I think that he is a prime candidate to get moved in the offseason, even if it's just a salary dump situation where the Wings go, we'll take a sixth rounder just for you to take his salary for this upcoming season, gives the Wings, just under $5 million in cap for a year, and opens up that roster spot for somebody else on top of that. I really struggle to find a scenario in which it makes a lot of sense to me, and you're going to be able to convince me that Tarasenko should be on this roster on opening night next year. So I think he's the first one that really, I think we may be watching his final games in a winged wheel here. But said the same thing about Justin Hall a year ago, and he's still on the team. So we'll see what happens. Let's talk Patrick Kane, who is a UFA, the first guy that's not under contract next year that we'll talk about. We'll do that right after this.
Do you have trouble sleeping? If so, you're not alone. That used to be me, lacking rest, tossing and turning. I was late for meetings. I never felt like myself. That's until I found Bare Mattress. Bare Mattress and their sleep recovery technology helped me fall asleep faster, as well as enjoy deeper sleeps. I felt like myself again, and you can too. Bear Mattress knows that every sleeper is different. That's why they have their sleep quiz on their website that finds you your perfect match. As a side sleeper, I matched with the Elite Hybrid mattress, and I've been telling everyone in my life they have to try Bear Mattress risk-free. You can sleep on your Bear Mattress up to 120 nights, and if you're not getting the best sleep of your life, you can get it refunded. They'll pick it up with absolutely no hassle. So go to bearmattress.com and use my promo code LOCKEDONNHL at checkout to get 40% off site-wide. This offer is not available anywhere else. You have to use my promo code on the very last page of checkout to get this discount. That's bearmattress.com. Use my promo code LOCKEDONNHL for 40% off site-wide. Bearmattress.com, promo code LOCKEDONNHL.
All right, everybody, welcome back. Your segment 2 of Locked On Red Wings. I appreciate you all for tuning in. As always, making Brian and I your first listen every single day, even when Brian is away and has his toes in the sand and is enjoying life with his wonderful wife. We are talking about who on the Red Wings roster is playing their final games as a member of the Detroit Red Wings. I think the first real candidate we've had so far is Tarasenko. There's maybe, I'm sure, some people that are going to say that one of either Kopp or Comfer needs to maybe be moved this summer, but I think that one's a little less of a guarantee. You still got Kopp for 2 years after this one. You have Comfer for 3 years after this one. I think those ones you're kind of in those for the long haul, at least for maybe not a long haul, another year or so. Tarasenko, we talked about. Patrick Kane is a really interesting one. Patrick Kane is not under contract after this season. Gets paid $4 million. I mean, there's like a billion different bonuses and like, oh, if he, sneezes on the third Tuesday of the month, he gets like $500,000. So like there's a lot of stipulations in that, but the cap hits $4 million this year. Then he's a UFA. This is going to be one of the most fascinating conversations Brian and I have, to be honest, this summer. I think the Wings would like to have Kane back, but I think there are questions surrounding his value in terms of just like dollar signs. It would not surprise me if there were teams out there that were willing to give Patrick Kane a pretty hefty payday based on the rate of point production he has been at since being kind of fully acclimated to the Wings last season even. So it really wouldn't shock me if his price tag just kept going up and up. I also wonder what he wants in terms of contract length. The Wings last year, that was a big talking point where like Patrick Kane said he wanted multiple years, and the Red Wings were like, no, how about we just give you $4 million for one and go way over the amount of salary you were expecting, whatever. I wonder if that's still the case or if he's at an age now where he's kind of just going contract to contract until he's ready to call it quits. I really do wonder if anybody approaches him with a 2-year deal, is it just wraps? Like, is it just over and that's who he's going to sign with? So I'm not sure that's going to be Yzerman either. He's had a lot of reservations about giving anybody really long-term contracts. We know how stingy he was with the Larkin, Raymond, and Sider conversations. And obviously, again, Patrick Kane a year ago in the same shoes. So that's an interesting one. I currently kind of am under the belief that somebody out there is going to want to pay decently big money to have Patrick Kane kind of, run their power play and be a part of their offense. But in the same breath, I'm not sure the Wings can afford to let more goals walk out the door. This is a team that desperately needs to improve at its even strength goal scoring, which I guess Patrick Kane doesn't affect as much as the power play, but like they can't afford to just let goals continue to walk out the door like they did last summer. And I don't know, that's going to be a really interesting conversation. I'm like right on the fence with that one, to be honest. That one's really tough. I'm not trying to ride the fence here, but that's a really difficult one. Michael Rasmussen, I think will be here. He's under contract for just a little bit over $3 million for the next 3 years after this one. I'd be pretty surprised if he wasn't back in some capacity. Craig Smith, I think, is pretty much guaranteed to be a free agent and probably go elsewhere. Not that he's been like terrible or anything, but that was like it was a 35-year-old rental. That was the whole point. He's a 35-year-old rental. He's making $1 million this year. I'd imagine that he'll test the open market and see what he can get out there if he wants to keep playing. Carter Mazur, RFA, he'll be back. Elmer Soderblom, RFA, he'll be back. Marco Casper, I think still under contract. I don't even think he's technically RFA. Elmer's RFA. I don't even think Mazur is either. So like all these young guys will obviously be back. The interesting forwards remaining are Berggren's and RFA. I think that there is maybe a conversation there. Didn't produce a ton this year, but also wasn't, a traffic cone out there. Like he was fine. I think that there's a reality where I think he's back. I think he's back for a similar conversation as, like not letting goals walk out the door. Again, not a ton. Didn't, light the lamp too terribly often, but I also think that for what you would have to pay him, which is still not a ton of money, it's probably worth keeping a 24-year-old next year, 25-year-old depth scoring option around. So I think that he'll probably be back. Tyler Mott is a UFA. That's one that I probably think he's not back just because I don't know. It's hard for me to imagine they're like prioritizing him. I mean, we saw a couple of guys that were in the similar boat last year and didn't make it for whatever reason or were traded or cut or whatnot. Christian Fischer comes to mind. I can't imagine that he's going to be a high priority, but I don't know. Like if they did bring back Tyler Mott for $800K next year, I wouldn't be mad. He's been fine in his role. I'm not trying to say that he's been terrible or anything. It's just I'm not sure that's going to be a high priority for the team. Then Austin Watson, I'm pretty sure, is under contract next year as well. Defense, Moritz Seider, very easy. We'll be back next year. Ben Sherratt. Ben Sherratt is only under contract for one more season at $4.75 million. So I'm going to go with yes here. I will say that there's a lot on the defense that could get moved. And I think that is kind of the overarching point that I'm really trying to highlight with this episode. Obviously, there's more forwards than anybody, so we're going to talk about them longer than any other group. But like when you look at this defense, Sherratt, Hull, Gustafsson, all under contract next year, dude. All of those guys under contract next season. What are the odds? Okay, you tell me, what are the odds that Sherratt, Hull, and Gustafsson are all on the Red Wings blue line game 1 of 2025? I would say it's close to 0. I'll reword that. I'll say it should be close to 0. I think it is a failure to this blue line and to the roster construction if all 3 of those guys are still on this roster come opening night in 2025. Now, which one specifically do you want to pluck off? I'm sure everybody is going to have a different opinion on that. I feel like most people are going to say Justin Hall, actually. Maybe people aren't going to have a different opinion. But, like, Ben Sherratt's the most expensive. Okay, so that frees up the most cap. And he has been, I guess, okay. But, like, certainly is leaves a lot of room to be desired. And I think in a perfect role is like a third pair guy on your team. Justin Hull has been just brutal for the Wings ever since putting pen to paper. And Gustafsson massively disappointed and underperformed this year, but he's the cheapest. $2 million next year. All 3 of them are only under contract for next year and then are off the books. So it's not like you're dealing with, who's going to be, how many years are you freeing up by getting rid of this person versus that? It's all the same. In hindsight, it is pretty I feel like apparent that Hall is going to be the clubhouse leader there. $3.4 million next year. I feel like you kind of have to find a way, again, to get at least one of those three guys off the books before next year. It would not shock me at all if Gustafsson was a casualty of the summer. That's like kind of something I'm going into this summer expecting, is for Eric Gustafsson to get moved in some capacity. And you can move Gustafsson and Justin Hall. You can try. I'm not sure you're going to get any takers for 100% salary on either of those guys, but you can try to work some stuff out and find a way, or just buy out. If all fails, buy out. It's a year left, man. It is far more valuable to buy out, work out some type of payment thing over the next however many years and open that roster spot than it is to go into next season with those three guys all still on your blue line. Let's talk about the UFAs on the blue line and then the goalie room, okay, which is a disaster. We'll do that right after this. Got to talk to you all about our friends over at Wonderful Pistachios. If you're looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious, crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts, with each 1 ounce serving having 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats that'll keep you feeling fuller longer. Personally, I love the no shells variety. It's the perfect grab and go snack for busy days. Whether I'm snacking at my desk, on a road trip, or just need a quick protein boost, they are always my go-to. And if you love cracking open every shell for that satisfying crunch, well, the in-shell options are a classic favorite as well. So get snacking and get cracking with a snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. All right, everybody, welcome back. Your third and final segment of Locked On Tigers. Dang it. I'm not cutting that. I was like, I'm going to make it through the whole week without doing it ever. Of Locked On Red Wings, rather. Used to driving more over at Locked On Tigers, of course. Today we are talking about who could be playing their last games as a member of the Detroit Red Wings. We've talked about the forward group. We've talked about half of the blue line. Let's talk about the rest of that defensive unit. Simon Edvinsson will 100% be back next year. That is maybe one of the biggest guarantees on the entire roster. Albert Johansson, similar, right? He'll be back next year. Not as much of a lock, like I guess in some fairy tale universe, if they want to tag him on in a trade, that's a possibility. But I'm pretty confident he'll be back. William Lagesson, I think, is probably a UFA, and is, I mean, he might come back on a AHL contract. We'll see kind of what happens with him. But the big conversation here is, I don't even know if it's really a big conversation. The last conversation here is Jeff Petry, who is a UFA after this season. I think that this is probably it, man. Like I don't know why the Red Wings would. He's getting paid $2.3 million this year, and like half the league is paying his salary. So like I don't even know exact dollar amount how much the Wings are on the hook for there. I can't fathom that this is a high priority for them. They need to get younger and better, just straight up better on the blue line so badly that if they go into this summer and they don't move on from Gustafsson, Sherratt, and Hall, and for some reason re-sign Petry, I will lose my marbles. And it's not any of those necessarily in a vacuum. It's the concept of, if you do all of those things, you're just running it back. And that's unacceptable. So I don't think Jeff Petry will be back. I think these are his final games as a Wing, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in depth when the time actually comes and we get to the summer here. But I truly can't fathom a world in which he's going to be 38 next year, where he's going to be a super high priority for the Wings this offseason. Let's wrap up with the goalie room, everyone's favorite group. We're going to start with the UFA on this one. I'm just stressed already, and we haven't even started talking about it. Alex Line, a UFA. I don't expect Alex Line to be back. I think that he is probably going to have a decent market. That I don't think the Wings are going to be willing to like match or guarantee to bring him back. That's okay. He's 32. He's been fine. It was a great contract by the Wings. This is a massive success story. But I think he will get like legitimate NHL interest. And I think that that's probably too rich for what the Wings are trying to, for what role he would have on the team next year. So that leaves us with the two goalies that are under contract. I can't even believe this is the world we're living in. Cam Talbot, $2.5 million next year. Petr Mrazek, in the year of our Lord 2025, is on the hook for $4.25 million next season. This is so absurd. I don't like this. These two goalies, Mrazek and Talbot, you are paying just under $7 million next year. Is that A, good asset management, B, a goalie room that people are going to be pumped about going into next year? No. I would even go as far to say I don't think it's acceptable on opening night for your goalie duo to be Mrazek and Talbot. You have to figure something else out. I refuse to believe that that is the best that this team can do with another offseason under its belt. Now, the easy thing to say would just be, well, move Mrazek. Yeah, I don't disagree. He's getting paid over $4 million and was one of the statistically worst goalies that got consistent playing time in the NHL this year before the injury and before getting traded. So, yeah, like he's the easy one. I just don't know how much of a market he has. I don't know. Again, you find a way, you eat some of the money, whatever you got to do. But I think it makes far too much sense to get as much of his money off of the books as possible and his roster spot freed to open the door for a bigger name free agent, or obviously, you start having the Kosa conversation. So that's the roster. There's a lot of UFAs that I don't expect back, and there's a handful of guys that are going to be rentals next year that I think you could get out in front of and move this offseason, but they're going to have to get creative, man, because I just went through the whole roster with you. There's not a ton of holes that are going to open up, and you got to find a way to get some salary cap. Got to find a way to get some money to spend. We'll spend 2 seconds here and preview this game against Florida today. 7 p.m. puck drop in Florida. I don't know. We're too far in advance of the time of this recording for me to know exactly what their injury situation is with a lot of these guys, but obviously you just played them and they had like half their roster hurt. You were basically playing their AHL team. So, if that's still the case, maybe you go out there and get another win, I guess. But if they are even remotely healthy, they're going to be very physical. It's going to be tough to beat them twice in a row. And if you do lose to their basically AHL team, well, then I don't know. You might as well just pack up. Like that's not only is that like literally you're going to be mathematically eliminated at that point, presumably, but that's just kind of going to prove that the players are checked out at that point too. So we'll see what happens. Thanks for making Locked On Red Wings your first listen. Super encouraging end every single day. Appreciate you all for tuning in. I'm so sorry for like the doom and gloom tone of this episode and yesterday's. I don't want that to be the case, dude. Like, I don't want to come on here and talk about how like everything's miserable. And like some of you listen to this show in the morning, like as you're getting ready. I'm not trying to like ruin your day. Go have a blessed and beautiful day. Okay. Do not let this hockey team control your emotions. Okay. You go and have a great day, talk to some friends and family or I don't know. I think it's going to be cold, so maybe don't go outside, but like have a great day. Pretend like you're on a honeymoon at the beach with your newlywed wife. Maybe you can try that exercise. All right. But you're not bald. Well, maybe you are, but you rock it better than Brian. We ball. I think that's all I say, right? We ball, and then same time, same place. It's your team every day.